Good evening, everybody. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the South Haven City Council. It is Monday, September the 19th, 2022, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Invocation this evening is going to be given by Pastor Steve Smulligan of Hope Reformed Church. Good evening, Stephen. The steeple's amazing. For those who haven't seen it, I'll just say.
Well, we want to thank you. We had our 150th in August, and it was a tremendous experience. And the capstone of that was to rebuild the steeple. Just a bit of history. In the past, in history, steeples pointed both upward and outward. People governed their direction by that point in the sky. It led them in their life, and it led them in their life. And so we're grateful to have been able to restore that as a part of our community. So let's pray together. Almighty God, we greet you this evening. Once again, we acknowledge your existence and your rightful authority over the affairs of men. When we gather to make decisions that affect our community, our work is an echo of your sovereign rule. Help us to seek you. For in seeking you, we know we will be pursuing that which is best for all your children whom you love. Thank you for creating us in your image. Thank you for breathing the breath of your life into us. Thank you for entrusting to us the work of your hands. We pray for our schools, especially as they begin a new year. We pray for our businesses. We pray for organizations and individuals who seek to enhance the quality of our lives and that of our community. We pray for homes, rental properties, hotels, restaurants, gathering points, and places of worship. We pray tonight for open ears, clear heads, receptive hearts. May those who share do so gently and always with respect. May those who listen carefully so there is understanding. Guide those who have been elected to serve as they consider items of business that, in the end, touch us all. Thank you for their willingness. Thank you for their faithfulness. Guide these men and women in the decisions to be made, especially those to be made tonight. And in these days, Lord, calm the waters. There is so much that divides us when there is so much that truly unites us. Be God over the wind and the waves, the times and the seasons. And as you stilled the storm long ago, still the storm in us and in our day. We live in a beautiful place. Thank you for this place that is South Haven. Bless those who live here, who work here, and those who travel and visit here. May it be that in this place, all will experience your presence, your blessing, your joy, and your peace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it. Have a great night. And now, if you're able, if you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect. Roll call. Megan.
Jeff Arnold.
Here.
Wendy Onuki.
Here.
Joe Reeser.
Here.
Steve Schlock.
Here.
George Sleeper.
Here.
Letitia Wilkins.
Here.
Scott Smith.
Here. That takes us to the approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Questions? Nothing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's approved. Next, we are going to get a presentation from the Domestic Violence Coalition Executive Director, Miss Melanie Hooker. And good evening, Melanie. And thanks for being here this evening.
Yeah, it's been about 4 or 5 years, I think. So some of you might remember me and some of you might be new. And so we've dealt with a lot over the last 3 years, as you may remember.
Can you pull your mic down just a little bit, Melanie?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That
Appreciate
better?
it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So now that we're kind of returning to normalcy, I wanted to come out and kind of remind you that we're here, but also tell you about all the new things that we're doing. So you can go ahead. So if you don't know what a domestic violence counts as, so for it to be a domestic, these are some of the things. So either currently or formerly married, boyfriend, girlfriend, intimate partner, or someone you've lived with. So that's, generally what a domestic relationship would be. I will say that as of October 1 of 2021, they changed that with our grants. So they no longer allow domestic, if it's not intimate partner, to be funded through the federal or state grants. That doesn't mean we quit doing them. That means that I took them all on. So on top of my executive director duties, we are continuing to do all non-intimate partner and non-domestic PPOs. So I just wanted to throw out there, it could be anything, and we see it all. But I think if you go to the next slide, it kind of goes over, no. So domestic violence is obviously, most people know about the physical assaults, physical or threats of violence, but it also includes financial abuse. We're seeing a huge influx of elder abuse cases, specifically with either caregiver fatigue, that's what I would primarily call it, but also a lot of financial abuse. So we do assist with those cases as well. Little fact that I learned at my training, in 2019, there were 35,000 individuals in the United States over the age of 100, and the 65 and older was the largest growing population. There was twice as many people 65 and over than new babies being born, yet only 2% of our funding federally is designated for elderly. So it's a rough thing out there, So anyway, we're dealing with a lot of that. We actually saw a 29% increase during COVID of elder abuse cases. If you want to go to the next one, because I know that I have limited time. So how do people come to us? We get a lot of CPS referrals through DHS, Michigan Works, prosecutor friends. But our biggest is law enforcement. And we know that law enforcement is struggling because every department is short-staffed, new officers, whatever. And so we really are getting out in the community to let everybody know that that's what we're here for, is to take a little bit of burden off of them. Our numbers since March have gone through the roof. And so I know that if I'm that busy, that law enforcement has to be completely overworked. And so, it might be filtering to you guys. We used to average, this is a small county, 76,000 people. We would average between 25 and 30 new clients a month and helped with about 10 to 15 PPOs. Since March, we're consistently over 75 new clients, and 30 to 36 was the highest so far, personal protection orders that we're assisting with. That's not even counting the ones that are being arrested and then they have a no contact order. And what that means is that the court has said, you've been arrested with this violent crime, we're not going to let you have contact. They don't necessarily need a personal protection order. It's the ones where they're either not arrested yet, they haven't found them, or they don't choose to make a police report, which is over half of the domestic violence cases. So we're seeing a huge increase. We're seeing a huge increase in severity. During COVID, I didn't see higher numbers. I did see more severity. We were called out to the hospital 12 times in a 3-month period. But we're seeing it continually going. So I'm trying to add more staff. But we're out there working all the time. Okay, next slide. It's okay. So this is, as of October 1st, our fiscal year is October 1st to September 30th. So this year so far, we had 346 new clients. 72 were male, 274 were female, and we've so far assisted with 227 PPOs. Interesting fact, from October to March, we had only done 82 PPOs. So when I said we're suddenly getting this influx, it's all been since March. We have assisted 39 individuals from South Haven, 26 of them since March, and I pulled it this morning. So non-domestic personal protection orders would be neighbors or coworkers, someone you've never had a relationship with. We assist those. We have an agreement with the county. We take on all of those as well as our regular duties. We've done 10 non-domestic out of South Haven, and I will tell you that predominantly, and they probably can agree with me, it's mental health issues. So we have neighbors with severe mental health issues, harassing other neighbors, and just causing all kinds of problems. And we're assisting these people as much as we can, but just so you know, it's been rough. I asked the prosecutor, she said that they have charged 28 individuals with domestic violence. So I said waiting for numbers. So since October 1st, we've had 28 charged, but she said there were many, many more that could have been charged. And the biggest reason I think that they take plea deals or offer plea deals is that our victims aren't coming forward. So we are trying really hard to get out in the community and to tell everybody so that you can tell them we're there to be by their side, we're there to believe them, we're there to validate them, and we will go to court with them, we will get them to court, we will drive with them, we will take them. I've taken people for doctor's appointments if it's related. We take people, I've even actually sat in on parenting time. It's not something I'm supposed to do, but I'm not grant funded, so I can do whatever I need to do. We want them to be safe. Also, I want to stress that sometimes safe is not necessarily calling the police or getting a personal protection order, and I totally understand that. I go back to like my first week of working as an advocate. I've been there almost 14 years now, and a woman, I stupidly said to her, well, why don't you just leave? And she said, because when he's sitting across from me and I see his eyes go black, I know when something's going to happen and I know to get safe. But if he's not with me, I don't know when he's coming after me. And that changed my view. So I just work really closely. We work with them to do a safety plan so they know what to do. It's kind of like a go bag. If any of you ever watch Criminal Minds and they have that go bag, we get them ready with a go bag. We also started a closet, a survivor's closet. So we have everything a person could need if they need to get out quickly and safely. We have personal care items, we have clothing, we have gas cards, we have Visa gift cards, we have phones, we have anything someone could need. So we're providing all of that free to our victims. I don't remember if I had anything else. Is there something? Oh, and then we talked about what we do. So yeah, the biggest thing is listening to them, validating them, and believing them, because if you've ever known anybody, and I guarantee you have, even if you don't know it, because 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men are victims of domestic violence. So you probably don't hear that a lot about the men, because only 1 in 16 men report it, but 1 in 6 men are victims. So we're seeing a lot. There's a lot of people, and they don't ever feel believed. They feel like everybody's against them. It's kind of like Stockholm Syndrome, too. Like a lot of them will go back repeatedly because they don't think they have any other option, or they think that they imagined it. You know, and we've all heard like gaslighting. It's that thing where they're really believing that it's their fault. So we're dealing with that a lot. I think I touched on a lot. I'm also the chair of the Continuum of Care, so I work really closely with all the housing developments in the area, so I can help with housing. So I can write a letter, and that will often get them kind of bumped to the top of the list because of safety. We also can assist people in getting out of leases if they need to leave quickly, so that we do that. We have support groups, supportive counseling. We have sexual assault therapists twice a week in our office and a domestic violence therapist once a week in our office, all free of charge. Next. Okay. And so our 2 biggest services are the domestic violence services and sexual assault services. We do the same thing for every one of them. So new since COVID, we have both a sexual assault response team and a domestic violence response team. With the sexual assault response team, we respond to the hospital when someone has been sexually assaulted, and we sit with them when they have to get what is known as the rape kit, but the SANE exam. And then we would follow up with them and provide any services they need, as well as going to court with them, et cetera. The domestic violence response team is relatively new. We're still really trying to kick it off. So what we do is we take these little packets, and we've started delivering them to law enforcement. And the idea is, if you're familiar with the Victim Service Unit, which I'm also on, when they go out on a domestic violence call, once they've interviewed the victim and they're focusing on the perpetrator, they can call us, and our team will come out in 2, and we will sit with that victim. And then once the perpetrator is arrested, we will take care of everything else. So we will get them packed up, we will get them moved, we will do the protection, or we will do whatever they need in that moment immediately, because we lose about 80% of victims, not lose them, but they don't call us if it's overnight. So we're going out to them 24 hours a day if requested. And we also just received a new grant that is going to allow us, with my 5 staff, we are focusing on the LGBTQ community. So we're doing outreach because we know that we have a large population in Van Buren County, but they're not coming to us. So we have partnered with both Outfront in Kalamazoo and the Out Center in Benton Harbor, and we are going to provide services at both locations as well as in our office to try to get with that community because they have a 68% domestic violence rate. So we're really trying to target individuals as well. We have a migrant outreach program. We have a Spanish-speaking advocate. She goes to all the migrant camps. She's done all the laundry events. Are you familiar with those? Okay, so every month in Hartford, a different company sponsors the laundromat, and they provide free laundry for people. And then during the summer, when we have migrants here, they do it 3 to 4 times a month at different locations. And it's primarily migrants that come and utilize it, but it is for the whole community. So she's there, she's providing services, understanding there's a whole nother cultural dynamic to that. So she's very culturally aware. And then I'm trying to think of what other programs. Oh, and then we have the WAVE program. So with all of that, we also have an anger management program, a batterers intervention program, and then because like 78% of our cases, either the victim or the perpetrator is on some kind of substances, we partnered with the county and we do MRT, which is a 12-step cognitive behavioral program for all the specialty courts. So it targets substance abuse. And most of my women have also been domestic violence victims. I'm starting a support group in family reunification court right during court, starting once a month. So we're just really trying to get out there, and I just wanted to, again, thank you guys for letting me come here and present, but just make sure that you're aware of everything we're doing. And then on top of that, I brought a few flyers, but October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So we're going to have little events, but on October 20th, it is National Wear Purple Day. So we decided to make it a competition. And if your office or wherever you're at all participates, you send me a picture. We're going to put you in a drawing, and then the office could win bagels and coffee on us. So we want to make the whole county purple on October 20th and just get that out there as well. And then on the side note, just so you're aware, I'm also planning the Veteran Stand Down, which is in Decatur on October 14th. And it is from 10 to 2, and it's for any veteran in our county. And we provide surplus and a bag full of goodies, but as well there's 48 to 50 different providers that do services for veterans. So come out, check it out, and that's that. Any questions?
Cool. Any questions?
Okay. Well, thank you for everything you do.
Absolutely.
That's so important. I was just wondering, what do you do if the victims have children with them?
Well, like when they come to the office?
Or
just
when
in
you go
general?
out on a call, do you help the kids as
We'll
well?
take the kids. Yep, we'll do whatever we need to do. We don't have a shelter in Van Buren County. We've tried a few times. So we have to get them outside the county or get them to a family member, but, we'll load up the kids, we load up everybody. And I've even taken in a cat or two, I'll be honest, because a lot of times people won't leave because they're pets. So we've got a few people in the community that will take those pets until they can get someplace safe. We've worked really, like I said, I've worked really hard to not have any excuse to not be safe,
Yeah, thank you.
Good question. Joe, you had a question?
Wendy already said, I just want to thank you. It's those areas of life that for most of us, we don't even know exist. And to have you do that for a living and help the community is amazing. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep, I'm just going to do that on behalf of all of us. Thank you. So,
Yes.
and please keep giving us updates, and if we can be of help, we can post information. I've got some outstanding police officers back there, get them the info too, so anything we can do to help spread that word, we will do.
And they're doing amazing because we're seeing the arrests every day, so don't.
Good job back there. Two of them are looking at
We're
their
seeing them
phones,
come
but
across, so we know that they're making the arrests. And then this is what we give to the police officers. I forgot to tell you. So we get these out, and it has, so they can put the report number, and it has all of our contact info.
Great.
And I also have cards. But I will hang out here if anybody wants to talk to me after. Feel free to. And thank you again.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. And if you get tired because the meeting goes long, feel free to sneak out. I'm just telling you right now. Okay, thanks again. That takes us to the consent agenda items A through H.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through H.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call.
Arnold,
Yes.
Onugi,
Yes.
Reeser,
Yes.
Schlock,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
yes,
Smith.
Yes. Takes us to old business. City Council will be asked to introduce a package of ordinance amendments addressing the operation and licensees of food trucks in the city of South Haven. I think like before, maybe rather than a motion or second, why don't we have some discussion and let's decide how we want to approach this, because I think this is a bit of a big issue for us just to take. So maybe who's going to introduce it, and then we can get some public comment, and then we'll have this group throw it out.
Mayor, I'm happy to introduce or just start the discussion. I
let's
did
go.
want to also make note that we've received correspondence from last week, or last time this was talked about, as well as today, from Trevor Brooks, Chantel Brooks, Mary Hosley, J. Mark who is speaking on behalf of a number of downtown restaurants such as Phoenix Street Cafe, Tello's, Sophie's Steakhouse, Clementine's, Maria's Taste, Sukasa Kitchen 527 Park, at Gastro Pub and South Haven Brew Pub, as well as today's Joel and Heidi Gazikowski. So we've received a number of communication that's been passed on to council.
Very good.
We do have an ordinance here. We can talk about the particulars, just kind of giving a baseline for that. I know this was in the Planning Commission for a good 6 months, if not more. So I'll have Griffin and Nick kind of go over the particulars of what's in this ordinance, and then we can kind of go from there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just for a little bit more background, as a friendly reminder, towards the end of last year, so 2021, there were a few different situations going on that prompted the City Council to direct the Planning Commission to review the existing mobile food unit or food truck ordinance, if you will. At that time, when it was sent to the Planning Commission, the direction from City Council was rather broad. The Planning Commission started reviewing it in December, and after 5 or 6 months, and after significant review, proposed the ordinance that's before you all this evening. I will have Nick, the city attorney, go ahead and work through both the regulatory code and the zoning ordinance pieces.
So as Griffin alluded to, the ordinance package is broken into 2 separate ordinances. One would be in the city code, and that would cover the licensing of food trucks. And then the other would be in the zoning ordinance, and that would cover the locations that food trucks would be permitted to operate. I'll start with the regulatory code first, and I would first say that the existing mobile food vendor ordinance in the city code has caused a lot of confusion over the years. It's pretty lengthy. It's got a lot of definitions that it's kind of hard to piece together how they're supposed to work together. So one of the major, I think, things that this ordinance tries to do is to put the ordinance in more user-friendly language, simplify it, it makes it much shorter in overall length, so that the public and staff can kind of clearly understand what the regulations are. As for specifics, the ordinance has a definition of mobile food vending unit. It's kind of the operative term. That's intended to cover food, the things colloquially known as food trucks, as well as other similar types of vendors like food carts and things of that nature. The definition specifically excludes vehicles that kind of quickly move from place to place, like ice cream trucks, would not be regulated under this ordinance. So moving to the next page, the ordinance would require all food trucks to have a permit before operating within the city. The only exception to that would be food trucks operating as part of a special community event. They would be exempt from the permitting requirement on the theory that they might only be in the city for a single day out of the year, and it would kind of be overly burdensome for them to do that. But at the same time, they would have to comply with all the regulations that apply to other food trucks for that limited period when they are in the city. Permits would be issued for a period of 1 year and could be renewed annually. The ordinance does not cap the total number of permits. The proliferation of food trucks would be limited by the zoning ordinance and not by kind of an overall cap on the number of food trucks. And again, the theory there is that there could be food trucks out of other locations that come to the city for a limited period of time, like food trucks from Kalamazoo might periodically come to the city, but wouldn't necessarily be here day in and day out. Let's see. The ordinance provides a pretty lengthy list of general operating regulations. Some of the more notable ones is that the permit, they'd have to have a city-issued permit visible on the windshield in the left-hand corner. There'd be hours of operation for food trucks. There would be 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And the food trucks would have to provide garbage receptacle, and the operator would also have to clean up garbage at the end of the day within a 50-foot radius of where they had been operating. There's other kind of operational requirements as well, but that's kind of a brief summary of those. The ordinance has a new provision, and this is in the regulatory code, that would allow food trucks to serve kind of private parties on private residential parcels up to 2 times per year per parcel. And the Planning Commission designed this provision for things like birthday parties and graduation parties. It's apparently kind of getting more common for those types of events to want to have a food truck present. And the Planning Commission developed, I would say, pretty strict regulations for that scenario. In that scenario, the food truck couldn't serve the general public, couldn't, it would be specifically for the invited guests of the resident, and they would have to be, the person wishing to have the food truck at their property would have to get a special permit for that event from the city. And then there's regulations that go with that are specific to this provision of the ordinance. I think they have 5 hours total for the event, and that includes setup and takedown time. They have more restrictive hours of operation, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's a restriction on the on-site smoking of meats, with the idea that would be more kind of burdensome and have adverse effects on neighbors in a residential zone. So there's kind of tighter regulations for this specific type of event. Moving to the zoning ordinance provides different regulations for the different districts. The Planning Commission's recommendation is significantly more permissive than what the ordinance currently allows, which is for food trucks to operate in the B2 and B4, is that correct? The B2 and B4 districts, but only for 2 weeks at a time. The new proposed ordinance would eliminate that time restriction and allow up to 2 food trucks by right as an accessory use in the essentially the business and industrial districts, the B1, B2, B3, B4, I1 and I1B and I2 districts with 15-foot setbacks in those districts, with the kind of understanding those are fairly large lots, and a 15-foot setback is going to be possible in most scenarios. Up to 1 food truck by special use, and this is the only, well, there's 2 places where there would be a by special use as opposed to right, and this is one of them. 1 food truck as a special use and an accessory use on an institutional lot in a residential district. So it does not mean on like residential parcels. It means things like school and church lots within a residential district. One of the comments that I think both the Planning Commission and the City Council received is that there's some interest in people being able to walk to food trucks from their residence. This provision was designed to accommodate that without having food trucks actually in residential rights-of-way or on residential parcels. It would be kind of the larger lot institutional uses within the residential districts could potentially have food trucks. In the CBD, there'd be up to 1 allowed per lot, but only on parcels that are restaurants, bars, and breweries. And I think this was kind of designed to allow the existing downtown businesses to provide a food truck option, but only those that are already serving beverages and that type of thing. It does not allow storefront type of stores to have food trucks in the back. This is the only instance where the zoning ordinance specifically limits it to certain types of businesses. And then finally, the ordinance will provide food truck parks, which would be a kind of a lot where multiple food trucks would be allowed to operate, and that would be the principal use on the site. The site would be set up to accommodate food trucks. It would have to have a structure with a bathroom. It would have the option of having a structure to provide kitchen accommodations for food trucks. And there are a number of other regulations. And again, this would be up to 5 food trucks at a time. And this would be a special use in the CBD district only. So that's a kind of overall summary of the ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions that the council has about either of them. Yes.
I have a question. Was a lot of this stuff already in the draft, or, because it seems like there's a lot of stuff on here?
The existing ordinance,
Yeah.
the city has a very comprehensive and lengthy ordinance. Many of the things in the regulatory code have at least analogs in the existing ordinance. Some of those particulars are changed, and the staff report tries to explain where those changes are occurring.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because there are some local people who do have food trucks, and I'm just kind of wondering why we came up with such, it seems like it's a little stricter, the time of cooking and not being able to cook.
So the ordinance is significantly less strict than the current ordinance.
Okay.
I think the provision you might be referring to is the parties, where you can't have smoked meats at parties. Is that the one you're referring to?
Probably you just mentioned.
But that's the only limited circumstance where that
Okay.
regulation exists. in
So it's
general.
not like when you're in the festivals,
When you're,
Well, that's different.
like if they're in the Blueberry Fest, that doesn't affect.
Yeah, those are different. Yeah,
no,
that's-
so the
that's-
prohibition on smoking meats is only for those private parties on private parcels. That wouldn't apply anywhere else. And that just the number of areas where food trucks would be allowed would be substantially expanded under this ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Nick, and then we'll get public. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want us to save our comments till after the residents speak?
Yeah, I mean, unless you have a specific question for Nick. While he's here, we'll ask some questions, we'll get some public comments, and then
Okay.
that sound good? Okay. So if anyone's got, and you're not leaving, so I guess if everyone's good for right now, why don't we get some public comments? Sound good? Public comments. We would love to hear what you're thinking, so if you'd like to come on up, state your name, state your address. You'll have up to 5 minutes to share your thoughts. And good evening, kicking it off tonight. How are you?
Good evening. Kathy Wagaman with the South Haven Chamber of Commerce. And do you need to know where I live? Yeah, South Haven Area Chamber of Commerce.
Your address?
Yes, 1319 West Street. I appreciate the time and effort that the council and the planning commission has put into this matter. And I know you've spent quite a bit of time looking into the ordinance. I do ask that you really take into consideration our local food establishments, our restaurants, because as you know, in the last few years, they've dealt with an awful lot, including shutdowns, escalating food prices. They've certainly dealt with supply chain issues, and now, of course, a very critical employee shortage, staff shortage. So these businesses are also the ones that are very generous throughout our community, supporting charities, service clubs, supporting our festivals, our schools, and providing jobs. So we just need to be really mindful of the provisions that they have for us, and we just need to be careful to protect their revenue streams as well. So I just ask that as you explore permit fees and regulations and locations and so on, that you keep that in mind in your decision. Thank you.
Will do, thank you. Anybody else?
Eric Austin,
You can give your business address if you'd like.
527 Phoenix Street.
Okay.
I do oppose the food truck parks. And so I just kind of put a collection of thoughts together, and I thought I'd give them to you as you make your decisions. And as this question has progressed through the DDA, the Planning Commission, and now City Council, I've heard people sitting in these chairs talk about Phoenix, Arizona, Portland, having food trucks, and Traverse City. That's a town of 1.6 million. Portland, 650,000. Traverse City, 15,000. We're in a town of 4,000. Okay. The other thing I wanted to say that I know that we've heard that we already have them already. We have food trucks here already. We have food trucks at events. Yes, we do. We have them at the farmers market, and we have during our festivals, which is congruent with what they are for. They're for fairs and for events. I also hear people saying there's not enough parking in this town, and you consider getting rid of parking to put in restaurants. I feel that food trucks will be coming from outside our community, and if you pass this, you'll be selling off another piece of the town, and the money that they will take will leave. And that town will not be reinvested in our town or our residents. I know that the ordinance of the food trucks will be able to operate year-round, but I assure you that as the tourists wane, the days get colder and shorter, they will not be here. We will see the vendors not waiting to serve us in our quiet streets. Your brick and mortars will. I assure you, they will turn back our hours as we do, but we will here shoveling our sidewalks, greeting you to come in, and those who would travel during the winter season. I've had some say that it would be easier to get into restaurants during the busiest times of the year. It's just not true. People come to this town every year and go to the same restaurants every year, and they wait 2 to 3 hours every year because they want to. They want to wait in line for that experience. This is not going to change that. Other thing that would make these wait times shorter is if we could provide worker housing so we'd have staff available to serve you. So as my closing thought is unintended consequences. That is when you think about what we need to consider as deciding on these food truck ordinances, or should I call them STRs, short-term restaurants. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good one, by the way. That was a good one. Thanks, Eric.
Good evening. I'm Elaine Herbert, 404 North Shore Drive. You guys you're too young to remember the show called Who Asked For It? You asked for it. Who asked for it? Who asked for food trucks? But here we are. You know, I live on the north side, and nobody asked for food trucks over there. And I'm concerned about neighborhood parking over there. The Maritime Museum right now already looks like a circus show. Doesn't have any parking, but it sure got a lot of signage and a lot of crap going on around there. We don't need any food trucks over there. How much parking space is a food truck going to take at the Maritime Museum? How much is it going to take up there at the surf shop? How much is it going to take up there at the Elton Manor if they on the B1 neighborhood business area there? By the way, the Elton Manor, I happen to know a little bit about that corner, and it is mismarked. That is a RM1 neighborhood. It's mismarked in zoning, and the corner is B1, but the inn is on RM1, and it doesn't need food trucks on it. And how much parking is it going to take up on places that need to have parking? So that's a question that needs to be asked. We need our parking, and we don't need food trucks on it. And so there's that. You know, the downtown restaurants have been enjoying the largesse of DDA TIF money gathered from the tax base of a huge area, from Baseline Road, Riverfront, to the North Beach Lakeshore. Happy birthday, Ed Appleyard, by the way, and God bless you, Dorothy, wherever you are, who was an enemy of DDA forever. The restaurants downtown enjoy funds taken from schools and seniors and roads and general fund since 1975. Downtown enjoys amnesty from special assessments for roads and utilities, and the restaurants get ownership of public spaces with the best possible views of Riverfront Park and the Lighthouse for no extra nothing. They have received state funds for their private use to expand their own businesses and private properties. Their parking is free, their Wi-Fi is free. The apartments above them are exempt from STR parking and their rules, and it's difficult to cry a tear for them now, wanting to keep a food truck park or a few trucks out of a commercial district where restaurants belong. It's about the tourists, right? If they got a problem with over-tourism, they should join our efforts to reduce the STRs in our neighborhoods and bring the community back to a livable size. That'll help. But we don't want the noise and the traffic and the crowds and the smells and the trash or the commercial blight of food trucks on our beaches, our parks, or our neighborhoods where we go to be still and to relax and to hear ourselves think and to be at peace. Thank you very much. The crowds of STR tourists can walk to town in the commercial zones if they want to buy some more food. Or they can pack a picnic lunch, take their kids down to build sandcastles and be quiet. That's what commercial zones are for. They're for food trucks and commercial food, the same way they used to be for lodging. We don't want them in our neighborhoods. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. So my name's Trevor Brooks. I'm 555 Phoenix, the Dairy Queen, and I was the one that proposed the idea of converting the parking lot into a food truck park. I moved here actually officially last year. Bought the Dairy Queen. Just love this place. I'm actually Canadian, but I spent most of the last 20 years in Texas. And in Texas, food trucks are basically a way of life. And I thought, man, this would be perfect. This parking lot's really not a very good as a parking lot. If especially I noticed it in the summers, like when you get cars side by side, it doesn't work as a parking lot. But it's a huge opportunity. I fully respect, the restaurants and the fear of the unknown and those kinds of things. That's a natural human response. But the reality is there's zero evidence that food trucks hurt restaurants in any way. In fact, I've sent you guys a little bit of examples of actual real scientific data that's been conducted over years of showing that there is no evidence that food trucks can hurt restaurants. And in most cases, they actually help because they draw people. They're a specific draw and those kinds of things. And not only that, the reality is, this city needs some progressive ideas and to be innovative. And, it's kind of, I've heard the concerns and the stuff, and I'm thinking, geez, I hope they don't mean like I'm scared of the competition kind of stuff. Competition is essentially what this country is built on. And without competition, you have stagnation. You need the idea of innovation and those kinds of things. So I trust that that's not necessarily the issue. The other thing that I think is probably important to note, there are laws at the state level that kind of govern mobile food vendors and those kinds of things. And there's the natural business model of a food truck. And one of the things that's so for example, everybody's like, oh, you guys put this ordinance in place and there's food trucks are coming. Well, that's actually not going to be possible because the reality is at the state level, you have to have a commissary kitchen. So when a truck comes to town and they park and they serve, they have to go back to the commissary kitchen to clean up, to do the preps for the next day and stuff. That's actually a law. You can't. So you're not going to have trucks coming from Kalamazoo that are going to think that they're going to go into the residential and sell a whole bunch of food because they have to make money. So they're not going to prep their food in Kalamazoo, drive all the way here, thinking they're going to sell $2,000 worth of food, which is, again, another misnomer. No trucks makes more than $1,000 because it's a micro kitchen, if you think about it. You can't make thousands and thousands of dollars out of a small little kitchen. So one of the things with our property, we own both the buildings side by side. So I want to build a commissary kitchen, but I want to do that because, again, I moved to South Haven because, we've been fortunate, my family's been fortunate to have opportunities to invest. And I came to this city thinking, geez, there's lots of opportunities for investments and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to do that, but I want to do it for the locals. I've already had lots of people coming and talking to me. It's like, ooh, I'm so excited. I'd like to own a food truck someday. And I was like, well, I'm going to give you a shot. I'm going to have some trucks available. You can rent from me. I want to invest in this city. I'm going to spend a boatload of money converting, if you guys allow me to, convert the parking lot and build restrooms. I'm going to overbuild the restrooms. My architect said that technically for the amount of people that would fit in this park, I'd only need one bathroom for each men and women, but I'm going to actually have 3. I'm going to overdo it just because I think it's important. There is some challenges with bathrooms and all that kind of space. And, so ultimately, like I said, I respect the concerns by the restaurants, but there's no evidence that restaurants get harmed by this type of business model. They're micro kitchens. They don't do thousands. I think I saw online like thousands and thousands, $5,000 a day, or like that's ludicrous. The average truck does roughly $500 a day. So anyway, I'm just wanted to make sure that you guys there's lots of, evidence that it's ultimately would support the city in more ways than you can imagine. So I just want to bring that up. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Joe Wilkins, 811 Indiana Street. What was that? Can't hear me? Oh, pull it down. He's a lot taller than me. Sorry. Can you restart my time for me? I got it interrupted there. Thank you. Joe Wilkins, 811 Indiana Street. I wish I could just replay what Elaine said. But again, as the gentleman said, there is no data supporting that food trucks hurt local businesses. I'm not here to fight that issue. I'm just here to say that I don't see the same concern for the gentrification that's going on in Ward 1 when it comes to short-term rental. And to hear that comment there, it's funny, it's laughable. Everybody seems to be worried about the restaurant owners, but we don't have that same concern when it comes to what STR is doing to our neighborhood. Again, I'm not here to fight whether it should be downtown, but it's just like clockwork. I told my wife, and I will tell this council, short-term rental, COVID, have challenged all level of businesses. People have been forced to think out the box, do things different to stay afloat. I would have appreciated better if the 11 restaurant owners would have been honest in the letter they wrote you. I personally own a truck, and it's absolutely ludicrous to think you, a truck owner, can raise $5,000 a day. That is crazy. Just like they feel they're challenged, the local churches, numbers were dropping before COVID. Now you take gentrification in our neighborhood, the black neighborhood, that number is even lower than our white counterparts. So that number, those bodies being in those pews on a Sunday morning have dropped drastically lower than the white churches. Because STR is hurting our population even more. And so what I had to do as a leader, I had to come up with a way to figure out how to stay afloat as a church. So we purchased a truck just for fundraising purposes. There was years we could not even get into these events. We finally get a truck that meets the city's approval. And I told a council person that we'll have a push for a whole new ordinance. And like clockwork, we got a whole new ordinance being pushed through. It is sad to think how people feel about others trying to make ends meet. All we're doing as a church is a fundraiser with our truck trying to make ends meet. And yet you get a whole city of restaurant owners that say we're robbing from their income. And while their churches are going down. I'll say this and I close. I'll hate to live in any city that did not have a church. think about what the leaders are going through that try to make ends meet in these churches. I want the council to think about that. I'm not saying we should put them downtown. All I'm saying is that I knew this was going to come up because it never fails when, and I'm not going to go there, but it took us a long time to get in these festivals because they said we just didn't have the proper equipments. And once we got it, it just seems a little fishy to me. You only have 3 African-American people that own trucks in this area. But you go down here, we can't go to the beaches because that's locked down because you only allow one vendor to occupy the beaches. You allowed one person to put his business on the beach, and yet you're blocking food truck owners from coming in to try to make a living. It just seems a little unfair to me. So I just want to throw that out there. Just seems a little, think about the churches, what we're going through to try to make ends meet. These restaurant owners, a lot of that stuff that they put in that letter to you was not true.
That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you. As long as we're here, let's talk about events. How does this change?
The event provision stays the same. Events.
No change.
I believe that's
It's pretty much
correct.
the same. I just want to make sure everyone's aware. We're not talking about any change to food truck provisions when it comes to special events at all.
Right.
So
they'd
just
be
to
exempt
put
from
that
the
out there,
permitting requirement.
no change at all. Okay. Anybody else?
Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. Just to be brief, I appreciate the fact that the Planning Commission has dealt with this for several months, but I think this, if it's not a direct quote, it's pretty darn close from the chairman. I don't like the ordinance the way it's written at all. It's on the video from the June Planning Commission meeting at which it was pushed forward, occurs at about 2 hours and 14 minutes. And rather than addressing the issues that he had, it was swept under the rug. We don't know what issues. So it's easy to push forward an ordinance when the chair, who's supposed to lead the Planning Commission, says he doesn't like it the way it's written at all, but refuses to raise the issues. It's easy to say there's no gaps. It's easy to say everything is good. It's just like rubber stamping slip fees that don't cover expenses, like you did in the consent agenda. It doesn't matter how long you've worked on an ordinance. Need I remind you that the people who worked on this ordinance are the same, pretty much, as who worked on the environmental impact statement and the fire pit, which got resounding approval, recommendation and approval, and are back at the Planning Commission because of unintended consequences. I mean, I have taken issue with the very basic even definition. 10 minutes, if it's idling for less than 10 minutes, it's not a vending truck. Where did that 10 minutes come from? That was the estimated time that an ice cream truck. It basically pulled out of thin air. I appreciate that the city council and the staff worked to allow Fruit Street Kitchen to get a location with specific hours, a specific location for a duration of time. That's great. It filled a void in the area. I don't think that's happened with this. I think it was the net has been cast too broadly. With regard to DDA involvement, let me be clear, to the best of my understanding, DDA has not been involved. They were provided the ordinance a couple days before their meeting. They discussed it. They wanted feedback. And to my knowledge, nothing was given back to them as feedback. Their meeting was June 1st. Planning Commission meeting was June 2nd, and it's been forwarded. And I was at the DDA meeting after the city council meeting 2 weeks ago, and they were not aware anything had advanced. So there's a lack of communication among the staff, at the very least. So I don't care that it's taken months at the Planning Commission. I think it's half-baked, and I think it needs more discussion.
Thanks for your comments. Anybody else on this one? No. I know you're here. I just know if you would speak. So, okay. If not, we'll close public. Otherwise, I'll close. Sorry, I just want to let this will be it for public discussion. I didn't. Come on up. Just name and address and.
Bob Lewis, 515 Williams. First of all, I applaud you all for this because I've sat on councils and things in Kalamazoo, and it is a tough scenario to, what's that?
He just stated his name and address.
Bob Lewis, 515 Williams. Okay. So it is a tough balance to make everybody happy. I think the one thing to consideration, to take is how impactful it can be to the brick and mortar, right? And again, there's so many people in town in the summer. There's a lot there. I think you got to take into consideration more, not the time frame we just came out of in the summer, but the peripheral times where the local, I'm seasonal, right? There's enough in town. The two instances I'll give you is the gentleman said, there's one in Traverse City. It's called Little Fleet. They're literally brick and mortar. It's 5 or 6 food trucks, brick and mortar, very similar to what he says he's going to do. They pay city taxes, they pay property taxes, they pay income taxes, They take care of it all and got me. It's a business. It's private property. It's a business. That's fair to everybody. I'll also go and say Kalamazoo, for instance, they had a city-sponsored food truck rally in the park on Friday. I sat on city Kalamazoo Partnership. As I wear my city hat, it was great for the city. It brings a lot of people downtown to that park. It's absolutely phenomenal. As a business owner, it cut my business on Sunday lunch 75%. And, those are margins that some restaurants live on. So I'm not balancing or I'm not voting either way. I think you guys are doing a great job. I think it's tough to make that decision. The one thing I will say, South Haven's a pretty awesome town. And you all have done a great job to keep it what I refer to as Mayberry on the lake. And there's a lot of people that come here because of that fact. So I think food trucks can be good. I think it just needs to be controlled right and put right. So no matter what you do, it's adversely going to affect somebody. How you minimize that is what the question is going to be. And as long as it's not in front of another business or free, or there's city dollars that are promoting it and doing that's unfair to everybody else that's got to pay for their own in any business. I think it's fair. Like I said, I like the gentleman's idea. I like his plan. I think that would be great utilization of that property, personally. And it's private property. I think it's great to be developed there. I think it'd be a great addition to the town. But anyway, that's my input. I've lived on it on both sides. I've seen it sitting in the seats that you're sitting in. And like I said, I think the key thing here is the why. And like I said, there was a lot of ordinances and a lot of different zones and things like that. And I think it's just how can we do this the best to make everybody happy and continue to make South Haven the great town it is.
Sounds good. How's business this summer?
I'm glad it's over.
Very good.
No, it's really good. I mean, staffing, whoever brought up the housing for staffing, that's an issue statewide, especially along this west coast. I've got friends that have businesses up in the Traverse City area, and they're fighting the same thing. It's how do you get them in, but that's a bigger issue than what you guys are going to solve here today.
Sounds good. No, thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you. Is there anybody else that didn't go that wants to speak? I got everybody? Got everybody? Okay. Going once, going twice. Public comment closed. All right. I intentionally pulled this kind of away from motion. I'm not thrilled with it as it sits. I think it's a little too broad, personally. I would agree that I think we had a question about a food truck, and then it came back with a lot more than maybe I was ever looking for. So I guess I'm curious, because Planning Commission would like some guidance, and I know so we can decide how we want to do this, and we can have this discussion open and public. I mean, I think we've got a few things out there. Is it a limit of total number per ward, per district? I mean, if you have any thoughts, before we get going. But
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's a good comment, that if City Council is not comfortable moving forward with the motion or with the ordinance as proposed, I would just ask that there be some discussion tonight and some specific direction be given back to the Planning Commission. I can tell you they worked really, really hard for several months, and they looked at a number of different ordinances, and this is what they came up with the broad direction they were given. I think if we can give them more specific feedback, more specific guidance on where you all imagined or would like this ordinance to go, that would be incredibly helpful for them and for staff as they continue to work on this. With that being said, I also know a point that, I don't know if confusion's the right word, but a point that was brought up on several occasions at the Planning Commission level was how would application and permit fees work for food trucks? And that was regularly deferred to City Council as the policy-making as City Council, as the elected policy-making body. So that may be something that you all want to have some discussion about tonight as well, if you do ultimately send this back to the Planning Commission, because it would likely be helpful for them to understand what all of your mindset is in relation to fees when they potentially get this item again.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know you gave a few examples, and I'll say it first. They should be high enough to reflect the cost to do business. We know our infrastructure costs, roads, and all of what it takes to put a business in this town. So they need to be reflective of that. But anyway, so I saw one like at $7.50 or whatever. So, but we'll see if we can get some consensus. But our other thoughts on, like I said, I'll sit back on mine for a minute. I just know for me, it's a little broad.
Yeah, I'll give you my thoughts, I guess, for a minute. But we have one food truck permit now,
Yes.
and is there a way to simplify that process for that one food truck permit to where we can is that a special use permit?
No,
at
it
this
only
point?
was a special use. I think it was,
No, it was a resolution. So given the existing ordinance that we have, so the one that's already in place, food trucks are allowed to operate on private property in the B2 or the B4 district, or on public property with a resolution allowing it by City Council. And that's what happened for the Fruit Street Kitchen that's currently operating. They're operating on public property, so on city right-of-way, and that was allowed by a resolution authorizing it from this body.
Okay, so my feeling at this point is why can't we use just that and simplify everything instead of rushing through or pushing through an ordinance that we want to make sure we have it right first. So I'm for holding off, and if I had any guidance to give to the Planning Commission, I would say maybe it's more of a special use permit for any food truck. That way you make sure that things are certified and licensed by the state and properly done. We're not changing anything with the festivals or anything like that with either one. So I like the idea of the special use and special area, seeing, if I'm going to put in a bar in my neighborhood, I got to send notice out to everybody within 200 or 300 feet or whatever the procedure is. So I think I would tend to lean that way.
let me have a follow-up question, if you may, Councilmember. Right now, this ordinance proposes B1, B2, B3, B4, as well as the CBD. Our current ordinance really restricts it to B2 and B4 unless there's city property as designated by a resolution. Would you see those B2, B4, or would you add other business districts in there?
What I'm concerned about with the CBD area, aside from the B1 and the other business districts, the CBD bothers me that if you load up 3 or 4 food trucks in one parking lot, be it a private parking lot or not, you're taking away parking for the brick and mortar businesses downtown. So that's my feeling on it. It's more of a parking issue for me in the CBD, because I don't think it's fair for a truck to roll in and take away more parking from the brick and mortar. So that's my feelings on that area, if that helps or not.
Okay.
Did you want us to come up with a amount for the fee, or?
I
heard you say
I was simply
$7.50.
just throwing out,
Oh.
to say, I want to make sure it's reflective of,
Mhm.
we always talk about the cost of utilities and infrastructure and what it takes
Mhm.
to run this town, so I don't want to set it arbitrarily low.
Mhm.
And, because if someone's coming in and essentially
Right.
running a business that needs to be reflective, of those costs.
Well, just thinking about what someone said. They said on average, a food truck is making about $500 a day. So I'm just thinking, I guess if they're here, will we charge them the same if they're here? If we have a food park, would it be the same price for a person that's just here for a festival, or would we just charge just one basic price for everyone with a food truck?
So festivals
Festivals
are
are-
different.
Right, festivals
Oh,
are
so
always
it's going to be
different.
different?
Fe- festival-
Because I thought when I was reading it that no matter what,
Festivals
okay.
are always
Festivals are different. They're exempt from the
Fees.
registration, from
Okay.
the certification,
So I
where.
guess thinking about $500 a day.
No, not a day,
I mean, not
for a
five-
season, like a,
For a season?
or a year, probably a year.
So
Annual
we're talking
permit.
about an annual permit, and it would be the same fee if you were here every day during that annual permit, or if you were here once during that annual permit. That's how that's how the proposed ordinance is written.
Okay.
Well, I guess I was thinking more like $250 to $500.
We can get into that more, but, okay. Any
Just
other
a
comments,
thought.
questions relative to
No.
this? Steve, or you? Jeff, thoughts?
Yeah, I certainly want to thank the Planning Commission because, as you mentioned, they spent a lot of time on it. George works on that. Thank you, George, for your time. And I don't want to discredit that work, but I don't want to support this as is. And what we're doing, of course, we're trying to give the Planning Commission something to go on. I agree with what Steve had to say about the parking in the Central Business District. And Kate was questioning about the B4. Yeah, I think that's fine. If someone wants to come down into the business, over by Spencer Manufacturing and cook lunch for the the people working down there, that sounds fine.
Marinas and
Yep, marinas, marinas would be another one. So, yeah, if they could explore those kind of options, how we can make that happen. My reluctance to support this is because I do want to support the brick and mortars. Mr. Brooks is his idea at the Dairy Queen, and Mr. Lewis mentioned he saw one in Traverse City, and I've been to the back lot in Petoskey. They have great facilities like that. I think with Mr. Brooks, city staff, and we can work with you to help you get going while we sort this out for our other food trucks. And I think one of the things I read that we were going to eliminate was, I think food trucks are only allowed in the summer, and I would prefer to keep that. Let's keep it in the summer, so then our brick and mortars are more protected in the off-season, and it wouldn't apply to Mr. Brooks. That would be a permanent situation. But if someone wanted to, if Ms. Wagaman and the chamber wanted to have an event New Year's Eve and sponsor some trucks to come in New Year's Eve, okay, maybe. I'm not saying none in the off-season, but I want to protect the brick and mortars when it does slow down around here. So I'd like the Planning Commission to kind of look into that. How could we do that? How do our neighboring communities do that to make sure those kinds of things occur? I think that was.
So I think part of the question, really, I think the staff and, everybody's looking for guidance on is the proposal, Mr. Brooks we need guidance on that.
Well,
on that.
yeah, and if
mean,
I can, Councilman Arnold, so the proposed ordinance that we have in place now wouldn't allow staff to work with Mr. Brooks to move forward with his proposal. What he's proposing is a land use that doesn't presently exist in our zoning ordinance. The proposed ordinance essentially creates that new land use and would allow for Mr. Brooks to submit that application and go through the process contemplated in the proposed ordinance. I guess conceivably, Mr. Brooks could apply for a use variance. Those can be challenging and problematic for other reasons, but I want to be fair to him and not get his hopes up that, unless City Council moves forward.
I understand what you're saying, and we were able to work with the Fruit Street Kitchen, so I'm just suggesting that we'll, obviously legally, however we can guide him, put him in the right direction, hopefully, and so as not to derail his efforts.
Let's keep going.
Okay. I also want to support and protect our restaurants downtown because they're amazing and they give back to the community, and I do appreciate them. At the same time, I love to travel. My family and I love going to food trucks and other places. We've been to, I think, last year we went to a food truck park on Chincoteague Island in Virginia. It was adorable and awesome. They were right next to a restaurant, but they just had foods that you couldn't get at that restaurant. And I think they just, like the vibrancy and different cultural offerings that they bring are something that we could use in South Haven. There's not a huge diversity of food at present, and I just love exploring other cultures through food, and I know I'm not the only one who likes that. I also have heard from someone who works downtown Zeeland that just fairly recently they let food trucks come into their community, and all the businesses for the most part downtown supported it, even the restaurants, because they did see that as a different demographic that wants food trucks, that goes to food trucks. It's not the same people who would sit in a restaurant if given the choice. So I don't think that they're necessarily going to take away from the restaurants in that way. Like, especially older generations, they love to sit down at Clementine's or Taste, and I mean, I love those too, but that's just their comfort zone, whereas younger generations and young families might just want to grab something and go. And in summer in South Haven, getting to-go orders is not an easy task. So I feel like there is room for all of these things to go exist and just add like a great richness to South Haven that we could use. And then my other thought on that was, there's such a great tool for innovation, and I think that, like, who knows what could come out of this if anyone with a business or anyone with an idea can make a food truck. Like, and I know some restaurants downtown are doing really cool things. Like, what if they want to do a food truck and move their business around to other places? I mean, it could serve in that purpose too. So I feel like having food trucks shouldn't be a big scary thing, but I do think we need to do it thoughtfully. And I appreciate the ordinance that the Planning Commission gave us. I did have a few questions about how they came up with having it year-round and then not having a cap on the number. But I also did trust them to have the best interests of South Haven in mind when they came up with it.
So you threw out a concept of a cap, and we are allowed. I mean, I think that's kind of one thing we're allowed to say. Do we want to do it by war? I mean, maybe we start with 2 per ward. I'm throwing that out, but let's start and let's see what happens. That would give some ability to move forward with pieces and parts.
That would be really helpful. I really appreciate a lot of the comments. I think something I'm at least hearing is, there's lots of comments from City Council. Planning Commission did the same thing about kind of the value proposition of a food truck, and those are obviously policy decisions you all get to make. I think when it comes to feedback for the Planning Commission, we're looking more at how would you all like this use to be regulated. That's, I guess, a little bit more specific, but that's what the feedback I think would be really helpful for the Planning Commission.
Okay. Sounds good. That's one. George, you've been through this before.
Yeah.
How about doing it again?
Just one thing, we do have a food truck ordinance that exists. It's not very usable, and one of the things, the reason why this came up is an entrepreneur came to City Council and said, I want to have this great idea, but our ordinance doesn't allow it. And so it took a long time. Planning Commission looked at a lot of ordinances. I don't believe a lot of them had caps associated with them. I think the market would dictate that, and I don't think there's really going to be a huge influx of food trucks given this ordinance. Yes, this is less restrictive than our current ordinance, but I really want to emphasize, I don't want to get into another emergent issue of someone with a good idea coming to this body saying, hey, the ordinance doesn't work for me. I'd rather get in prevention mode and get an ordinance out there that's going to keep us from having those emergent people coming to us saying, hey, what we have doesn't work, and we know what we have doesn't work. And I believe that we did do a lot of good work to bring this to City Council. I'm currently willing to support this and send it on and introduce it at the next meeting myself.
I grew up in Philadelphia and went to Temple University, where food trucks were all around the whole perimeter of the college. And if it wasn't for food trucks, I literally wouldn't have lunch because my parents gave me no money for food. So milk and a slice of pizza from a food truck or something like that, a soft pretzel, is how I lived. But I think Chicago, I talked to a friend of mine who has food trucks, certain parts of Chicago. I think South Haven is a very, very different town than other cities and other big towns. We are, as people say it over and over again, especially when we talk about short-term rentals, we're a tourist town. That's where the biggest influx of money comes in. And when we live and die with tourism, there's a couple big attractions. One is the beaches, one is the beautiful sunsets in the small town and all that. But another one is people drive to towns for restaurants. My wife and I do it all the time. I think a lot of people do. But with that said, if it's a small town and we have restaurants here that attract people, they can only make their money 4 months of the year. Now, I don't care what my opinion is as much as the owners. So I went out and I talked to AJ, the owner of Maria's. I talked to Edgar, the owner of Sukasa. I talked to Julia and Joel, who own Phoenix Cafe and Julia's Cafe. I talked to Eric, who's sitting here at 527. And I talked to Joel at Taste. That's a lot of the restaurants. And consistently, they said they're not afraid of competition, and they don't mind food trucks. They just don't want them across the street from them. They don't want to have to compete with them because they have 4 months, 5 months to make their whole year's profits. You take even 5 or 10% of that away from them in the summer months, right on their own street, they may not make it. We already have some restaurants going to close in the winter now because they're losing money in the winter. And I was told to be by more than one owner that they lose money in the winter months. So I do think if we're going to look for economic development, and it's been said many times, we got to protect what we already have. And I think we could put these restaurants in jeopardy. Having said that, I do think we should, like George said, we should look at new ways to attract people. So let's have food trucks, but let's walk before we run. Why don't we limit it to 2 or 4 of them? And you started to say that yourself, Mr. Mayor. Let's limit it to 2, 4, 5 of them, and let's limit where we put them. And I think there's some good locations that would be perfect. I know my neighborhood doesn't want a food truck on Monroe Boulevard or around Kids Park, but when all those people go down the blue stairs, I can just imagine them being able to get some food there. I also think on the South Beach might be a place. I don't think it's right to have a no compete on the beaches, but yet we're going to basically say we'll allow food trucks to come in. I think if we're going to allow food trucks to come in, it should be anywhere that makes sense. It doesn't harm parking. So I just would rather walk than run, have a few of them, have all the regulations we need, and then see how they work, but not downtown competing directly with the restaurants. And I think special events, Pastor Wilkins talked about it. I don't see there's a problem there. No one has said we're not going to, as Nick and our assistant city manager said, we're not going to restrict any of the special events. So we can still do all of that. But I don't want, where it says here on this ordinance, market demand, that's how many we'll have. I don't want a flood of these coming in here, and that's market demand. Now, eventually they'll thin out, but in the meantime, they could knock some restaurants out of town. So let's pick a number, whatever seems fair, and start with it. And then if we see there's still demand, the restaurants are doing okay, then we can increase it. but I don't want them downtown, and I don't want an unlimited number in town. And as far as the park, the food truck park, it sounds like it can't happen anyhow. But if they put it right where the Dairy Queen is, and I know it's your Dairy Queen, and I eat there all the time, by the way. I've grown up with Dairy Queens. But that's right next to 427, as he told me. It's right next to Phoenix Restaurant. It will take some of their business. It may be 5%, but those 4 or 5 months, 5% is their livelihood. So that's my thoughts on it.
If I may, Mayor,
Yeah.
I think to be on solid ground for planning-wise, I think we need to look at districts, zoning districts versus either picking and choosing locations or looking at maybe wards. I think it's just good planning if you're using the zoning district as the best way to make your determination. So if you are looking at places that you do want to omit them, like say residential or the CBD, I would maybe put that in your guidance to staff, to Planning Commission, if it's not going to be going forward tonight here. But I would definitely look at the districts as the underlying way that you decide where they're going to be located.
Sounds good. And we might need to, I don't know if everyone has all their zoning districts in their head. We can pull them up, go, oh, who's got, anyway, we'll get into that as far as, okay, a couple thoughts. First, comments have been great. Thank you for everybody that's thrown them out on this topic. I appreciate it. I too have had many a talk with, I think, almost every restaurant owner in town at different times, and I have encouraged them to come down and talk to us, send us letters, and I appreciate that we've gotten them. So, and again, I support them. They are here year-round. They are our brick-and-mortar stores. I kind of, as this first came up, I said, they're the ones that, in January, when the schools having events, the students are knocking on these businesses' doors, collecting money for their events and doing their thing. So they're here all the time. I wonder, is this the right year to eject unlimited numbers? We're just getting over COVID. We know about the staffing challenges, so to interject something now, at least unlimited, I don't agree with that. Again, food trucks, they're not going to help pay for the infrastructure as we know it exists, so I would argue the fees need to be reflective of that. So if you're doing a year-round food truck or even, again, chunk of the summer, it should be reflective of that. So I would probably park it at $7.50 and work from there. Parking issues, again, I think we have to always look at that no matter where we put them. Especially, I understand the concept of the Dairy Queen. That's a different kind of concept, but there should still be parking. I do have concern with use of churches, and just specifically, I worry about for this specific, I'm looking at hours types of uses. You're talking about some cases like this, open early to later. I would just want to make sure we're not open at 7 a.m. in a church because that's adjacent to a residential person's house, and if someone's cranking up their business at 5:36 to be open by 7, that wouldn't make me happy if I lived adjacent to a church because that's normally a pretty quiet place with exceptions of Sundays. So I would be concerned about that. Just something to think about. This kind of reminded me back to the days of our farmers market discussion. When we started the farmers market, the concept was a farmers market, produce and whatnot, and then it kind of morphed and it got a little bit out of hand, and it was a craft fair, art fair, everything else, and our businesses kind of got on us. And they're like, well, why are you allowing all this out-of-town business to just show up in town and you're selling jewelry and all this stuff? It's not a farmer's market anymore. We had to kind of bring it back down because it sort of morphed. And the shop owners were very clear. They said, hey, guess what? People came to town, they shopped, or they kind of went to the farmer's market, and they never went to our side of town. The money was spent before they ever left the farmer's market. Some vendors saying, whether it be cookies, whether it be whatever, or it didn't start until afternoon when the market shut down. So just something to be thinking about. Again, we need to pull up a map, but I would definitely be in favor of limiting the total number. Setbacks, just had some questions. I worry about how we're going to apply those. Who's going to determine where they are? Are we going to have surveys done, whatnot? So anyway, that's just a whole other question. Incentives for local vendors, I'm just throwing out questions that my brain had. That was about it. So anybody have any thoughts on a number or locations? Again, I think we've got a downtown space, CVB space, versus, I mean, again,
I
a
already
little,
said I'm not for the CBD, so.
okay. Nothing in the CBD for you? Okay.
I would like to see the Dairy Queen food truck park happen, especially because he said before it'd be different than what we have currently on offer, and I just think it'd be a great opportunity for our town. And as far as having, you know, a limited number in specific other areas outside of the CBD, I would be good with that, even if it just started somewhere like 10 or 8, I don't know. Just something
Gotcha. Yeah.
small.
I would be, yeah. I threw out the number of 2
I still think there's
per,
gotta be some way to have a special use permit, and make it easy for somebody, if this church wants to have this activity in their parking lot, make it easy for them to do that without a 20 or 30 page that's unenforceable ordinance.
well, special use would still, I mean, we still have special event.
To make it simple, I guess. I'm just trying to simplify things, and if we're dealing with 3-foot setback here, 5-foot setback, CBD, B1, B2, B3, B4, 1, and 1B, to me, I mean, yeah, I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box, but it should be able to be made simpler. That's all I'm trying to get to.
I guess unless does anybody have a specific thought on a per? Anybody else have any thoughts on that? George is good with it as is, I know that, so. I've heard a few people say they're interested in, a restriction of the number, but I guess at this point in time,
Yeah, I don't know. I think competition
if
will
we don't
will
feel
sort
ready,
that out.
if we don't feel ready, then.
But, and then.
We've got an ordinance on the books now, and nobody's been emailing me saying I can't get my food truck business started. So I don't know that if it's ready the way it is, or if it can be made simpler. I don't know, that's all I'll say.
But that's kind of what George was saying, is that he wanted to have this in place so that we aren't reacting to people saying, we have this idea, but we can't do it in South Haven, but instead we'd already have all that laid out so that they could potentially do it.
Well, we got a couple options. Either someone wants to make a motion, we could see where it goes, or there's a do nothing option, there's a table it to another meeting option, so.
What is it going to hurt if we table it?
Well,
Just delays.
yeah, it's just delayed. I guess, and I think staff would like to hear what would they like to have us, to
One-
bring back. I think that's.
One possibility is we try to incorporate these comments as best we can to another draft to bring to council, and council can look at that
Easy.
before sending it back down to planning commission. That, having another meeting of guidance from council may be helpful.
So just bring it back.
It'll have to go back to the planning commission if there are any changes, but maybe we can tweak it enough that that satisfies the concerns that we've heard here today. I've been taking notes, of course. We have this video as well, but I think that we've been hearing some continuity amongst the council members, but I think there's maybe 1 or 2 things that have not been settled, but we can make an attempt and bring it back here for council's concern or consideration before it's, again, trying to give, if there are changes, we need to get some goalposts
Right.
to figure out if we're going in the right direction or what you want.
Perfect. I'm good with that. Then let's just leave it at that. How's that sound? We don't have a motion on the table, so we can just bring it back. How's that? Joe, what you got?
The only thing I was going to suggest, if we could have a finite number of food trucks, let's just say 4 to start with,
Yep, I
could
agree.
the city also look at all the city property and say, here are the locations that we think are acceptable for a food truck? And then make that optional for the 4 food trucks. Let's say we pick 4. They can pick any one of 10 spots that the city says is okay, and simplify, to Steve's point, They can stay there, they can open their business, close their business, and they can choose which of those 10, but that's the only 10 to start with. So we're not trying to worry about every zoning ordinance and try to go down a rabbit hole that can't even be enforced half the time. So pick some locations that the food trucks can rotate. And then we try it for a year or two and see what happens.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, and thank you, Councilman Reeser, that was a concept that was discussed by the Planning Commission. I think there were a couple concerns they brought up when that came up. One was the public versus private property issue there. So that may be good for public property spots, but it's still not addressing, are folks allowed to use food trucks on private property, for example, the Meyer parking lot or the Family Dollar parking lot or some other area that may or may not be a good fit for a food truck. I think the other challenge was that the concept of where those areas on public property may be. If there are specific areas that the city council wants to identify to allow a food truck, that would be great, and I think staff would love to hear that. I know the Planning Commission asked city staff, and we don't really have good ones to recommend. Again, at a certain point, that's a value-based decision on do we want to allow that use on public property. So there's a couple concerns that have been worked out there. If that's something you all want to discuss more, I mean, we'll obviously listen and do it directed, but I think we would definitely need some more input on where those specific locations would be.
Okay. Well, if you've got to start, put it in draft form and we'll seek more. Sound good? Keep getting your ideas going to staff. Done. Everybody look good? Was good. Okay, well, let's roll on. New business.
Okay.
All right, City Council will be asked to introduce an amendment to the Everett Park Phase 2 PUD and set a public hearing on this topic to occur at City Council's regular meeting on October the 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m.
You want a motion first?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to introduce an amendment to the Everett Park Phase 2 PUD and set a public hearing.
Second.
All right, we got a motion, we got a second. It's an introduction. Who's got it?
I do. Again, appreciate the opportunity. Mr. Matt O'Connor, representing the Trailside Everett Park PUD, has applied for another amendment, this time to the Phase 2 approval that was approved by the Planning Commission late in 2021. The current proposal seeks to add a number. It's 12 two-family structures, so that would be 24 total units. To the development. There's been some change since the last time this was brought before you all. Kate, can we put that map up? Do you have it?
Sure, do you know what page? We can have IT put that in there, unless you have the.
Sure, how about page 118 of the packet, please? While that's getting pulled up, I think that'll be helpful in terms of showing a visual representation of the area we're talking about. Thank you. So if all of you can and see the screen up to my right, behind me and to my right, I guess, is highlighted in pink or circled in red is the area that's being discussed. Brought before you earlier was an area similar to that in yellow and similar to that in blue. Those two areas have had some challenges come up by the developer. Those will not be moving forward at this time. And instead, Mr. O'Connor is seeking an approval to move forward with the 12 two-family dwelling structures circled in red. They would be townhomes along both Elkinburg and Indiana. As outlined in the zoning ordinance, because this is a PUD amendment, it had to go through the standard process. It went before the Planning Commission, who held a public hearing at their September meeting, and it was motioned and voted to be recommended to be sent on to Planning Commission to City Council for consideration with a number of clarifications and conditions that you can see in your packet. With that, I am happy to do the best I can to answer any questions, but just want to make sure we all know specifically what area we're talking about.
It's been a long time coming.
It has, and I know I feel for Mr. O'Connor. He's come before this group and the Planning Commission a number of times and has faced a number of different challenges in regarding to taking the next steps on this project. I know he's chomping at the bit, really excited to build some new homes in South Haven. That phase one, so the area to the bottom left of that image, kind of more in the green, to my knowledge, we're quite successful. And moving forward to the next phase of this project, looking at a different housing typology that's real than what is real common in South Haven, which is more of a duplex type structure. And just for clarification, I know it was something brought up at the Planning Commission, so the yellow area and the blue area, those would come back before the Planning Commission and back before City Council before he would be able to move forward on those. So we're talking specifically about the pink section circled in red.
Are the reasons that it would have to come back is because it changes open space calculation?
Among other changes, yes.
Thank you.
What's the size of the duplexes, each unit?
My understanding is they're 3 bedrooms.
You know the square footage roughly?
Not off the top of my head, but the packet of information that was brought before the Planning Commission is included here. And I don't know if that information is in there. If not, that is something I can bring before you all at the meeting where a public hearing's held, if that's helpful.
Any public questions or comments on this one?
Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. So for this, thank you for the clarification that the previous 2 phases are now off the board and have to come back. I would just ask that strict compliance with our PUD ordinance is enforced. That would include the height of the buildings and the floors of the townhouses. There are several numerations that are listed and details continually are not provided, and the staff allows it to go forward, simply saying it will comply with the zoning ordinance. It's time the rubber hits the road, and we know exactly what is going in before the city council approves it. We need to have definitions of height and floors and bedrooms and square footage, and I believe that's all required, at least most of it's required under the PUD. And please, City Council, do not waive everything under the PUD, under your powers. That makes a mockery of our zoning ordinance and does not advance the health, safety, and welfare of our community.
Thank you. Anybody else on this one? No? Any other public, or no public? Council? Just an introduction, so.
Yeah, just the one thing that came up at City Council, so the driveway widths, as they're currently shown, exceed the maximum driveway width per the ordinance, but I believe that the condition 8, I believe, will address that because it says it's the final site plan shall conform with the ordinance, basically, so.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we've got nothing else. We've got a motion and a second to introduce the amendment to the Everett Park PUD Phase 2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's introduced. Nice. City Council will be asked to introduce an amendment to the Harbor Club condominium PUD and set a public hearing on the topic to occur during the City Council's regular meeting on October the 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m.
Make a motion to amend the Harbor Club condominium PUD and set a public hearing on this topic to occur during the City Council's regular meeting on October 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m.
Second.
Perfect. So a motion second to introduce the amendment. Who's got this one?
It would be me again. Thank you all. Mr. Scott Sinar, representing the Harbor Club PUD, has applied for a PUD amendment to modify a previously approved plan to construct a community swimming pool, spa, and pool house facility. At the time of the original approval, the specific design of some of these features were not finalized, and after the finalized plans were ultimately submitted to the building department for building permits, it was found that there were changes, albeit they were minor, but they did not meet the originally approved amendment, and these changes do not qualify for an administrative adjustment per our zoning ordinance. Therefore, they had to be brought back through a new PUD amendment to the Planning Commission and now to you all. So with that, similar to the last one, this was brought before the Planning Commission. They held a public hearing on September 1. It was recommended for approval and to move forward to you all with a number of conditions that are outlined in the staff report. One notable one was in regard to a fence along the property line. That was a notable item when this was approved the last time, and there was some additional clarification added by the Planning Commission, setting a specific timeline by which that fence need to be installed at the request of the neighboring property owner. With that, I'm happy to do whatever I can to answer some questions.
I was glad to see we put a date on that opacity in that fence, so that made me happy. Anybody have question or?
Explain the fence to me, please. Privacy fence?
There is it's my understanding it's a screening fence between the neighboring property owner. So let's see if we can maybe get a map. If not, there's.
We can just have that for when it comes to
there
council.
along the.
west.
Yes, along the western property line of the PUD. It is immediately adjacent to the neighbor property owner. There's a road that goes along that property line, and there were some concerns that the construction of this pool, spa, pool house facility was creating some concern of how that may impact the neighboring property owners' enjoyment of their property. So a condition was put on previously to extend a screening fence that already exists along part of that property line along the rest of the property line.
And they were given dates on when that has to be done. I think it has to be done by the end of this year, if I'm correct.
Right, it just said, for the item number 7, it says the entire length of the ravine lane.
Correct.
And then it says by installing a 6-foot fence.
That's correct. That's a 6-foot privacy fence.
Okay,
Half of
privacy, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Enough said.
Very good. Public questions, comments on this one?
Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. I have heard that the pool is actually going to be a year-round pool, and can that be clarified? And is there anticipated any cover for it so that it would be year-round? Because I'm not sure how that could be year-round uncovered and how that affects the impact on the neighbors. So.
I don't know if we know anything or if we can control someone. Know anything about that? I don't know anything about a year-round use, so.
I mean, if they have the approval to use a pool, they can use it at any point they
Keep
want.
it nice and warm and keep it right. As I thought, so, okay. Anybody else? Questions, comments, council comments? Nothing. All right, we've got a motion and a second again to introduce the amendment to the Harbor Club condominium PUD. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's introduced. Next, City Council will be asked to schedule a public hearing to consider an industrial facilities tax exemption application from Revere Environmental at 233 Veterans Boulevard on October the 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m.
I make a motion to schedule a public hearing for consideration of industrial facilities tax exemption application from Revere Environmental on October 3rd, 2022.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. This is a good thing.
It is. In late August, Revere Environmental, one of our major employers here in South Haven, submitted an application for an IFT exemption associated with the expansion project at 233 Veterans Boulevard that was approved earlier this year. With that, they're anticipating creating some new jobs in the area, which is a good thing. And staff has been working with them through the IFT exemption process. At your next meeting, if you all do schedule the public hearing, you'll be asked to consider both a proposed resolution to approve the IFT exemption along with an accompanying clawback agreement, which is similar to that the city uses in other situations when we're discussing exemption agreements. The commercial rehab exemptions is another situation when we use these clawback type agreements. So in summary, the proposed documents would recommend that the state approve a 12-year IFT. Commercial rehab, it's up to 10 years. IFTs, we can go up to 12 years. That would exempt them from certain property taxes associated with their expansion project. I do want to note for you all that the proposed abatement amount reflects the value of the real property improvements, not the personal property that was originally noted on the application. This is because since 2015, most manufacturing personal property is already exempt, and that would serve no additional benefit for the applicant. It would only hurt the city by decreasing the amount of revenue sharing we received from the state. This is a conversation that we've already had with the applicant. They're understanding of this and comfortable with that. And that's reflected in the proposed resolution. Additionally, the clawback agreement would contractually commit Revere to certain development goals, including when they're going to get this project finished, as well as requiring the creation of a certain amount of new jobs, and so on and so forth. So with that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions. This is relatively similar to a number of other IFTs we've considered for other manufacturing businesses in South Haven.
And this is very exciting because they're already having 60 employees out there. They're looking to add 10 with their 22,500 square foot expansion. This is one of our thriving businesses. I'm not sure if many people know, but they make wash systems specifically for large apparatus such as helicopters, and they're shipped all over the world. If you've never seen one of their demonstrations, it's pretty neat.
It's a pretty cool business. So, good news. What you got?
After the 12-year period, is that just done, or do businesses ever apply for another?
They can
abatement
apply for
after?
another one, provided that they have an expansion that meets the IFT requirements.
Okay, thanks.
We hope they do. Keep growing.
It's a way to incentivize additional investment into their facilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And states are very aggressive, trying to attract business, lure business, keep business. So our job is to figure out every incentive known to mankind to keep them here and encourage them to grow. And we will. So any other public questions on this one? Public? Nothing. Council? Nothing. All right. So this is just a scheduled public hearing for the Revere IFT. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. Thank you. Next, we're going to hear an update from Ms. Natalie Thompson, our police chief. Good evening, Chief. Happy Monday.
Okay, I'm going to start with some year-to-date updated statistics. And first of all, I've had a few meetings with community members to kind of tweak these a little bit. So first, the categories that I had formerly in these graphs, other citations and other warning, have been eliminated because I actually didn't know what those were. So we kind of streamlined. So now in the graphs, They're either, any tickets that we write are either classified as ordinance, traffic, or parking. So that keeps things a little bit more simpler. And the other ordinance violation tickets that are now just, it's all ordinance violations. And these include, the ones that we've written this year, include red flag violations, pier jumping, dogs on beach, park after hours, resisting police, and minors in possession. And that resisting police, we do have a city ordinance that is a misdemeanor, and that is for more minor situations of resisting that don't amount to physical violence where someone's getting injured badly. So we do have a city ordinance for that. So the ordinance violation tickets on the graphs, when you see that, those are the violations that we have written. And by the next meeting, I'm going to be getting some numbers on each of those violations. So as we go on, I'm going to be kind of streamlining these a little bit better. And in the person crimes graph that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, where we talk about assaults, I am now separating domestic assaults out from other assaults. That was a suggestion from Mary. That was a very good one. So for example, last month, for the month of August, our department handled a total of 10 assaults, and 2 of those were domestic related. So 20% of our assaults in 1 month were domestic related. And again, we're now tagging those. And so I'm hoping by the end of the year, we can have a year tally for the total of assaults that we took, and then what percentage of those were domestic related. So to the graphs, our top 5 offenses year-to-date, overall driving offenses, followed by assault, and then there's a tie for retail fraud and larceny, and then invasion of privacy. That file class is trespassing. We have a lot of that, especially over the summer. Businesses have individuals causing a problem, hanging out. So that is invasion of privacy, our trespass complaints, and we've had a lot of those this summer. The top 4 person crimes: assault, followed by 1 homicide, and then sex offense, non-forcible, and sexual assault. The sex offense, not forcible, those crimes would include indecent exposure, child pornographic dissemination, things of that nature. And then sexual assault, of course, are the sexual assaults for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th degree. And then there's another pretty specific breakdown on the property crimes. And again, retail fraud and larceny are our top property crimes. And then there's some of the other types of larcenies listed. Then to our department stats. So for our arrests, right now, as of August 31st, we are at 288 for the year. So as you can see, we have surpassed what our total arrests were for 2021 and 2020. Citations and warnings, the same thing. As of August 31st of this year, we're up to 1,043, and so we've surpassed the previous 3 years by a lot. Foot patrol hours, we may break even with 2021, but there's always a correlation. If we're maybe writing more tickets, the patrol's a little bit lower, but I do think foot patrol will probably at least reach what we were last year. We're at 335 hours on that. And then our overall calls for service, again, this is as of August 31st. For our police department, we are up to 3,815 calls total. That is 1,357 for the township, and then 2,458 for the city. So it's looking like, with a few months to go in the year, that we may surpass some numbers from last year. And then to the 2022 citations on that graph, that is where it's going to be a little bit more specific. This is the graph where I got rid of the other ordinance other warnings because didn't really know what those were. So we've got everything more confined now and to more specific categories. And then at the next meeting, I'm going to have a good breakdown of what are those ordinance citations and how many did we write. And then, again, the last page is just kind of, it's echoing that chart. Like right now, we specifically track golf cart tickets. Those are under ordinance, so those are separate from all the other ordinance citations. So that's the only ordinance ticket that we count separately. So we've got 40 of those for the season. And then our overall complaints, and those are complaints where we actually take a report number. We are up to 1,426. So again, it'll be close to maybe surpassing what we took in 2021, where we had 1,702. Property checks, we are up substantially from the previous 2 years at 769. Compared to last year, it was only 614, and the year before that was only 459. So those are up substantially. And then our blight complaints are up quite a bit from the last 2 years. And those are primarily, we handle a lot of those in the township. Next, now that summer is over, we're getting some of our training done. At the end of this month, all the officers will be completing our annual firearms qualifications. Also, I will be selecting one of our officers to attend field training officer school to help train new officers coming into the department. Earlier in the year when we had our 3 retirements, we also lost 3 field training officers. So I'm going to be sending one officer to that school this fall. And then our 5 newest officers will be participating in implicit bias and de-escalation training classes this fall and winter. And one addition, Officer Michael Ledger has been assigned to the Van Buren County Narcotics Team, and he is one of our 2 officers that are funded through the narcotics millage. So he just started a few weeks ago. And then in our back row in the corner there, he is doubled tonight with Sergeant Hathaway, but we've got our newest officer, Tyler DeBacker. He is excelling through his field training, and he will be on solo patrol in 4 weeks.
Nice.
So that is all that I have tonight.
Beautiful. Any questions for the chief? I'll just jump in. So you heard it from Melanie earlier, from the Domestic Violence Coalition, how outstanding you folks are. Every time we talk to our businesses, we always ask the same kind of questions about how our services, and we hear it repeatedly, how your officers are just outstanding in all regards, just responsive, extremely friendly, taking care of business. We were at Meyer, a week or 2 ago, and they could not say enough just about how everyone is so professional. So just pass that on. I appreciate it, and just thanks for keeping me safe.
Yep, thanks. I'll pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are at the citizens in the audience. We'll hear on items not on the agenda. So if you'd like to discuss something that we've not already talked about, come on up. State your name, address. You have up to 5 minutes to go.
Indiana Street. I just want to share with the council, I read a report earlier today, and I know that affordable housing is on your priorities, and we're fighting the issue and trying to get our hands around STR, but I thought this was an interesting article that I abstract a couple of parts of it, and I just wanted to read it tonight to let us know that others are facing this same issue with STRs, with affordable housing. And this was a report done on Marshall Vineyard Housing. And this was a quote from a particular person that they were interviewing. We're hemorrhaging people who are our infrastructure, who holds this community up, said Laura Seibert, the coordinator of the Coalition to create the Martha's Vineyard Housing Bank, which led a successful effort this year to win support for a new fund for affordable housing. If you don't have municipal workers, if you don't have teachers, if you don't have emergency workers, if you don't have someone to help families who are struggling and run the food banks, how does a community keep functioning? There was another quote that I abstracted from it. Schools have struggled to staff classrooms. Native American people whose families have lived on the island for centuries have been forced to leave their homeland. Firefighters and government workers can't afford to stay in the communities they serve. People juggling 2, 3, even 4 service industry jobs say they live each month knowing they are one rent hike away from moving into their cars or tents or onto a friend's couch. And there's Brown, and this particular lady in this interview serves the island's nearest and including its growing population of seniors. In the winter, the 96 square mile land mass of Martha's Vineyard settles into stillness. The tourism industry's grip on rental properties loosen, and the families who live here year-round rotate into more spacious winter homes for around 6 months. Only about half of the island's home remains occupied all year, according to the Martha's Vineyard Commission. A similar emergency has hit in resort town, beach communities, and rural destinations around the country. On Martha's Vineyard, policymakers have chronically underinvested in affordable housing and allowed investment properties and short-term rentals to proliferate unchecked. The island expert says it is more than 10 years late to confront its housing crisis, and it is not moving fast enough to narrow the gap. Between 2010 and 2019, the amount of housing on the island grew by over 4%, according to Martha's Vineyard Commission, but any progress was eaten up by the vacation rental market. In the same period, the commission found the number of units occupied year-round dropped by more than 8%. Even doctors, and this was the quote, the headline, can hardly afford to live here. Martha's Vineyard Hospital, the largest employer on the island and home to its only emergency room, has for months been operating with a quarter of its staff job left unfilled. In January, the CEO offered 19 jobs to doctors, nurses, and other workers ahead of the busy summer months, during which the island's population swells from roughly 20,000 to 100,000, and emergency calls skyrocket. Each were turned down. How do you recruit when rents are doubling from $3,000 a month to $6,000 a month, which is what happened to one of many nurses that worked for me. I thought that was a very interesting article because we're facing that. And a lot of beach communities are facing the same thing. So I wanted to read this to let us know, remind the council of how important it is that we do something about affordable housing and that we try to get our hands around short-term rentals. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. And then this is on non-food truck items, just so we know. I don't want you to jump on.
555 Phoenix Street. Yeah. I just wanted to, I've been officially a resident here now for only about a year, a little over a year. And one of the things that I have noticed that's, slightly unique to, we've actually been digital nomads for the last 4 years, living all over the United States, 6 months here, 6 months there, and that kind of stuff. But we always come back to Western Michigan because we just love this place in a part of the summer, and we chose to stay. One of the things, though, that I ultimately want to challenge the council here in general is the challenges of this city are not unique. Every single city on this country has all of the same problems. They're fighting for all the same things. You guys have to be unique, innovative, progressive with your ideas and how you choose to tackle these challenges. I think South Haven is a special little place that has some things that that are unique enough to bring types of people here. But if you approach the same problems that everybody else have with the same solutions that everybody else have, you're not going to compete. It's too small. the services here, or, we moved here, we started in Houston, and we lived on Maui for 6 months, and we understand now the challenges of even, of the island, in the sense of the services are incredibly important. And the reality is this country is no longer a manufacturing country. It doesn't, the economy doesn't work that way. It's technologically sophisticated technology economy, but that poses an opportunity for a place like South Haven, because now people like me can live anywhere. And I chose South Haven. There's a reason for that. I know that there's challenges. I bought the Dairy Queen. I'm going to be frank here. The Dairy Queen was about to be shut down. They were going to board it up. The entrance to this town was you're going to have to drive by 2 buildings with the windows boarded up, because nobody wanted to buy that building, because there's a ton of challenges, but I'm prepared to take on that challenge. I think you have to, as a city, you have to, come across and support the entrepreneurial spirit. I think Councilman Sleeper, in the Planning Commission, we're looking at that, because that is a critical component to attract the younger generation. This town is aging, and the reality is when you're a younger family, and you have choices of where you can live because you're working, over on the computer. Why would you come here? Why wouldn't I go to, Grand Haven? Why wouldn't I go to Traverse City? There's so many challenges, but so I just want to challenge you guys to think outside the box. Think about, not be so concerned about the possibilities of, trying to, do that balance of like, I don't want to hurt this dying industry, even though it's dying. Like, with all due respect to the restaurant industry, the staffing problems they have, that's not going to get fixed. Next year, there's not going to be a sudden influx of staff to this industry. This industry needs some innovative ideas, some creativity involved. Otherwise, they're going to continue to struggle, and you're going to slowly see them drop off. It's not coincidence when large families are looking to sell their restaurants. It's the nature of the beast. So I just want to mention that. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Was there anybody else? Got one more left.
Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. I would like to start out thanking Chief Thompson and specifically her staff for extracting the information on domestic assault. I think Melanie's presentation combined with that helps the city appreciate what's going on here, and it needs to be addressed. And I think it also goes to the depth of questions that I ask and are continually summarily dismissed, and I thank Chief Thompson for taking my question on. And so this progresses to many things: housing, decisions you make. The questions are summarily dismissed when I raise questions where there's shortfalls, and addressing impact on neighbors and residents and even developers. There's lack of appreciation of unintended consequences and also applications of laws. The environmental impact statement and the fire pit are perfect examples. They're back at the drawing boards because they didn't appreciate how it would affect everybody. Compliance with zoning ordinances are critical, but too often the staff say, we had to have creative thinking to get over it, to get through it because the zoning ordinance isn't clear. But the people doing the ordinance recodification are the ones who worked on the EIS and fire pit, and it's back at the drawing board. So when I ask, when you're approving a PUD, like at Trailside for phase 1, you decimated open space, clear-cutted trees that were in open space to put up skyscrapers as they're described now, because the PUD didn't require the height requirement. You didn't even understand what kinds of homes were going in there. That is lacking the foresight that you were elected to have. It goes aligned with pools, whether it's versus summer or year-round. What are the unexpected consequences on the neighbors. That should be part of the discussion on what kind of fencing is allowed. So please do not be so quick to dismiss my questions. Thank you again, Chief Thompson, for taking my question and coming up and showing that 20% of the assaults in August were domestic related. It just reinforces what Melanie said, and I hope the city council and city staff are stepping up to the plate to help with this issue, with these issues in our city. Please, city council, don't dismiss my hard questions. Request staff to address the answers, whatever they may be, and do more than just putting forward the answers that get the yes vote. Show the balance, the yeses and the nos. Have a full discussion, not just one that lets a developer or whomever get the yes answer they want. The citizens deserve a more fully, thoroughly discussed decisions on matters before you. And thank you for taking the step tonight for the food truck. It's a good first step. I look forward to more. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, city council comments. I'm going to city manager. Sorry, Kate, go. Almost cut you out.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to remind the council and anyone listening that City Hall will be closed, or will be opening late on Thursday. We'll be opening at 10 a.m. We have customer service and de-escalation training for city staff there. So just be aware, if you're coming to pay your bill, it will open at 10. I do want to remind everyone that the community survey is still online. If you have not taken it, you please do so. It will be online and active until September 30th. We have put a draft of the community vision statement on the city's website. It's on our front page. It was also on the city manager's blog from last week. This is to get comments and exposure to that statement prior to bringing Greg Goodshow back here on October 3rd. So if you have a chance, please review that. Please bring your comments to the October 3rd meeting, or if you'd like to, submit them in advance. We did wind up the Beach Flag Safety Program this Sunday on September 18th. We will be alerting pier closures through Nixle, as well as using that gate. So, I mean, the pier was closed earlier today because the waves were too high, but this is the time of year that the Beach Flag Safety Program winds down. Beach parking has also ended. Our marinas will be closing October 15th. This is that time of year. Those are my comments.
Questions for Kate? Nothing. City council, I'll start on my left.
No
Good
comment.
evening, Ms. Letitia. No? School's good?
School's great.
Very good. Steve?
No comment.
Just one quick comment. We got some correspondence, some emails last week about the newspapers, the newspapers. And I was thinking about it when I first got on council. The first time I served, Vicky Kozak-Wall used to always tell people, pick those up so they don't end up in a storm drain. So this has been going on for a long time. And what occurred to me is, and I saw that Mr. Veenstra had contacted the newspaper, and they were not very responsive. So my thought was, maybe we need to talk to Myers and Menards and Aldi that advertise, and tell them that their advertising dollars are going to waste. And maybe that'll get the Herald Palladium to behave. But more importantly, how about let's also just act locally. Let's just help each other out. That when it doesn't make it in the driveway or in my yard, whatever, I got a nice neighbor. He mows my lawn a lot, so I'll just go and get it and I'll put it on his porch. And across the street, they have two driveways, and they're always using the other one, and so they'll forget sometimes. So I'll go ahead and get that, and I'll recycle it for them. And across the street, there's a young couple, and they've got little kids, and they're young, so they probably get their news off their devices. So they don't get theirs, and I'll go ahead and recycle theirs too. So if we can just do what we can to help each other out, it'll also help to resolve that problem, I think. That's my only comment.
See, I keep saying I wish they would just put them in a few locations throughout town. Meijer, Walmart, City Hall, and we'll pick them up from there.
Yeah.
Just saying. Because there, hundreds if not thousands of them go to the recycling bin anyway. Still bundled.
Yep.
But anyway, I just know that from Boy Scouts, so. Next.
I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight, and I appreciate the comments, and that is all.
Very good. Thank you. George.
All right, I also want to thank everyone that came here today and gave us comments. We got a lot of good comments. I also want to thank everyone that tuned in just to listen and keep abreast on what's going on. I'd also like to see if maybe we can get an update on the Overton project, because it seems like there's a milestone coming up here next month that, I, for one, would be curious what is going on.
I have a
That's
brief
all I have.
update if that will help. So they're aiming to apply for the 10-1, so the October 1st deadline date for the Light Tech program. They've been busy seeking support letters from people in the community. I know that Kathy Wagaman from the Chamber of Commerce has been reaching out, trying to get support letters for us. I know Pastor Wilkins has offered to write one as well. So we're getting those submitted. I know that Senator Nesbitt has also written a letter of support, so we're compiling those and sending those along so we can bolster our application.
Thank you, Kate.
Good question. Joe?
Just a quick thank you to the restaurant owners who were so welcoming and so open with their comments. And the new owner of Dairy Queen, I can't thank you enough for keeping the doors open. One of my favorite places, so thank you. And I'm hoping whatever we do with food trucks, it helps the community and doesn't just take from one pocket and put into the other. And the last thing on the food trucks, I hope there's a way that we can have the ordinance written such that local residents get first access to putting food trucks in this community. Thanks.
Very good, thank you. All right, yeah, so thanks everybody for coming. Those that are left, I just say on food trucks, I think it's okay we took our time. I mean, let's get it right. Let's make sure we all get our input, get more community input. We've got time. Good news on Revere. We had a meeting last week with US Tarp. So if you've ever been out to where US Tarp is, pretty cool. They actually make things that cover like dump trucks and grain trucks and different things right out there. And very, good little business. Again, we've got several of these really unique businesses in this town that employ, 75, 100 people that are adding jobs. You've been by there lately. They actually have, they now are back in the building. There's a little brown building adjacent to there. So if you're aware, they're actually occupying the whole space. So super cool. I mean, and they go to trade shows, and they were telling us of like there's 5 in the country, and they're maybe in the top 5, even though there are a couple above them could gobble them up in a second. But they still said they're one of the top 5 in the country for manufacturers of tarps out in our industrial park. So good stuff. And on that note, I will seek a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Boom.